So let's take a moment and talk about the MARC record. MARC stands for Machine Readable Cataloging Record. So if you would open up the OPAC, or the online card catalog, and you would go to a work and you would open up its bibliographic information, you would see this. And you would be like, huh? What does all that mean? Well, each of these lines has information in it that tells the computer something specific about that information. Now we can look here and we can decipher from this, even with just the small amount of knowledge we already have. All right, so when I go to ISBN, hey, I've heard of ISBN. That must mean that this number right here is the ISBN for a paperback book. Oh, and then we also add the price of the book. That's what this is right here, in paperback. And it has two ISBNs. Why does it have two ISBNs? Oh, hardbacks and paperbacks have different ISBN numbers. So that's why this is here. So that's the information that the computer is reading in this line. And then, okay, let's see. LC call number, that's Library of Congress. Okay, so this is its classification number in the Library of Congress. So this is what that might look like. The Dewey number, hey, I just did Dewey. I know this one. So it can be 796.334, or it could be 796.3342, depending on how specific I want to get. I get this. So that's where the Dewey number goes. But what does all this gobbledygook out in front of it mean? What are these little pound signs or hashtags, as they are known now? And what are these numbers out here? Okay, this is the title of the book, but wow, what is all this? All right, so each and every piece of the MARC record means something different to the computer. So like when we look at the title line here, 245 is not 245, it's 245. Each number tells the computer something. The 1, it's not 10, it's a 1 and a 0. The 1 means something to the computer, the 0 means something to the computer. And we get more in detail in this in future videos. We're just kind of doing an overview here. The $ means something, the A means something, and then here's what follows that A. All right, punctuation is even important in a MARC record. Now, don't freak out, because the idea is not when we get done that you should be able to duplicate a MARC record and say, whew, I got it. No, the idea is that you're familiar with the MARC record and the pieces of the MARC record, so that when you see one, it makes more sense to you, and you know a little bit more about what it means. So that sometimes you might actually have to fill in pieces of the MARC record, depending on what or where your book or where the work that you're cataloging came from. A lot of times, books that are gifts, you might not find in your, your databases records. A book by a local author will not always be found in the databases records, and so you might have to do some original cataloging or some copy cataloging. We'll talk about those more specifically later as well. And so having a working knowledge of the MARC record can help make the process easier. I don't expect memorization and to know that, oh, I am not going to ask you to write me the title line of a book, a MARC record title line for a book. Not going to happen, all right? I just want you to be able to look at it and fill in the pieces, or see the pieces and know what they go with, all right? And we're going to talk about the main ones: title, author, notes, subjects, that kind of stuff. All right, so the first thing you have to know is that this entire, I took out a row, okay, of that record. Okay, so if you have any experience with computer science databases, really a MARC record uses a lot of the same terminology as a database. Okay, record, that's all the information that you put together for the one work. It's a record. When we were working with databases, all the information about a specific individual or a specific piece of information was called its record. So I have a record that had my name, my birth date, maybe my height, my GPA, all that kind of thing, depending on where the database was. MARC records have the same thing. All the information about this one work is included in the entire record. And then each line is known as a field, just like in databases. There was a name field. There might have been an address field, an age field. So all the information, again, to reiterate, is a record. Each single line is called a field. Okay? Then this field is broken up into smaller parts. For one, there's what's called the tag. The tag is the number at the beginning of the field. So the 260 in this case is the tag. That's the lead. That's telling the computer, okay, if I see the number 260, that means that everything else that follows that number is going to be information about the publisher or the publication information for this book. If you go back and look at the previous slide, the other numbers each stand for either a specific subject, titles, ISBN numbers. Okay, so when the computer sees specific numbers, it knows, okay, what follows this number is going to be specifically related to blah, blah, blah. In this case, publication information. All right, so that's the tag. Tag is that lead number. Okay, so the whole line is called a field. Initial leading number is called the tag. And then we have what are called indicators. The indicators immediately follow the tag. And the indicators let us know that, okay, there's some specific information or an indicator that tells me or indicates what information is coming next. In this case, our indicators are these two pound signs. It means there's nothing special. Sometimes within a line there's special characters, a 1 or a 0 or a 1 and a 3, and that tells us what kind of information we're going to expect next. A lot of times with subjects you will find indicators. So those are those come immediately after the tag. So we've got the whole line is the field, and then we start with tag, and we have our indicators. Okay? Now, if the whole line is called a field, then the different pieces within the field are called subfields, and each of those subfields have codes. So we've gone from whole line is the field, starts with a tag, then we have an indicator or two, then we have the subfield codes. And in each of this, and my lines are a little bit off, let me fix that real quick. Okay, so I've gone and I've fixed this so that our subfield codes point at the actual subfield codes. All right, so when you think of code, okay, there's a little piece of information that's telling the computer, okay, immediately after this, you're going to find something very specific. You're going to find the subfield. So as we're looking at this publication information, $A, okay, that subfield code tells me that following this code, since this is the publication information tag, I'm going to find the place of publication following the A. Okay? Following the B code, I'm going to find the actual publisher subfield. Following the C subfield code, I'm going to find the date of publication, right? So each of these, A, B, C here, are subfield codes. So again, the whole line is the field. Then we have leading number is the tag, followed by an indicator, and then the subfield codes, which are going to tell us what's going to appear in the subfields. Okay, and the subfields are the actual text that you see, and then this is a little off, it's supposed to be pointed in 1988, that you see in the book. the actual what makes sense information. Okay, New York, Harper and Row, 1988. Yeah, published in New York by Harper and Row in 1988. Okay, those are the sub-fields. So what we've done is we've created a line here for the computer that tells it specifically where to look to find information about where the book was published, who published it, and when it was published. Because remember, computers read data, and they have to have directions for how to read that data. If you ever took a programming class way back in the day, or if you've taken one recently, you know that every single thing a computer does is based on a line of code in a program. Same here with the MARC record. They devised a way to give the computer specific instructions to read each piece of bibliographic information and add that to the record for each work, and then put that into an electronic catalog. And by golly and by Jove, thank heavens they did, because that means, as much fun as it was, and I really did, I enjoyed it, going through the card catalog, you know, opening out those little drawers, and can you just smell it? Just think about that. You open up those drawers in the card catalog, for those of you who remember that, and just the smell of that paper and the cards, and you're looking through trying to find, you know, your information, and you get subject cards, author cards, title cards. As much fun as it was to be a searcher in that context, put yourself in the shoes of the librarian that had to type all those on the typewriter. Ooh, well, maybe it wasn't so fun after all. So as much fun as it was to search in those kind of catalogs, the advent of MARC gives us rules for the computer to be able to input that same information that was on all those multiple cards and all those little drawers in all the libraries around the world into a computer database that's now accessible by all the libraries in the world. And so we have more consistency across libraries, and we have an easier means to add bibliographic information into our catalogs so that it's even easier for our patrons to search for information. All right? So that's the MARC record. MARC record is made up of all the bibliographic information important for a work. Okay? Each line of that record, again, is called a field. Each field has its own individual tag. Each tag has its own unique indicators, which will be a number and a number. Okay? Then each tag has its own subfield codes, and each of those codes directly relate to a specific subfield within this information. So, one last review of this. My tag is 260, publication information. I have no indicators. There's nothing special about this line. It's straightforward. Computer keeps reading from left to right. Here's a subfield code. Subfield code A means I'm going to find where this book was published. New York. Keeps reading across. Next thing, subfield B, code B. I'm going to find where, or who, published this work. Harper and Row. Computer continues to read across, subfield code C. I'm going to find the date of publication. Bingo, that's it. The computer now knows, and it returns the search of publication information with these three pieces of information: New York, Harper and Row, 1988, because it's been given the directions from the tag, the indicators, and the subfield codes. That's the MARC record in a nutshell.